Greetings in the name of Jesus Christ to the church family at St John's Presbyterian Church, Bradford, Ontario. And congratulations as you celebrate your church's bicentennial. Anniversaries are important occasions. I think they serve at least three purposes. They cause us to look back and be grateful. They encourage us to celebrate what we have now. And they also challenge us to look forward and actively pursue new directions. So I hope that despite the disruptions this year, you are enjoying the opportunity to do that. My name is Phil King, a Presbyterian minister and currently Global Mission Director for the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand. How did I get invited to share with you like this? It's a long story with different parts to it, actually beginning last century. In 1999, I undertook an exchange ministry with Bondhead United Church, not far from Bradford. As a family, we would often come into Bradford. Toonie Tuesdays at Kentucky Fried Chicken were a real highlight for our young children. As were walks in Scanlon Creek and further afield in Algonquin Park. I soon discovered there was a strong Presbyterian presence in the area. I was part of the local Ministers Association, which is where I met Dan. I also attended the Presbyterian Church of Canada's General Assembly that year and made good friends with PCC ministers from the Ottawa region. During our year in Canada, our 12-year-old daughter Vanessa took piano lessons with Alice Lloyd, a member of your congregation. And I recall attending piano recitals in the church. Vanessa is now married, a mother of 2 young children, and plays the piano with a lovely touch. Her husband is a newly ordained Presbyterian minister, and I'll be sharing in their church service next weekend. It's funny how life goes. The reason for my reconnection with Dan actually occurred as the result of a tragedy. Dan reached out to me after the mosque attacks in Christchurch in March last year. He remembered that Christchurch was where I had come from, and he shared with me a news story about a prayer service for the victims of the attacks, which was held in Bradford and got a mention on your local TV news. On behalf of the people of Christchurch, I extend my thanks for your concern, your prayers, and your support. This horrific event rocked us to the core, and we greatly appreciated the support we received from overseas. Your prayers and Dan's reconnecting are examples of something positive that came out of something negative, something good out of something bad. Then ongoing conversations with Dan led to a realization of the significance of our Canada-Vanuatu connection. As a result of my global mission role, I had just done some research on Canadian Presbyterian missionary John Williams. And in the course of that research, I had visited the island called Erromango in Vanuatu, where he had been killed in 1839. Then, 170 years later, a reconciliation ceremony took place with his Canadian family descendants, who visited for the event. The locals on Erromango believed that this lifted a burden off their backs, freed them spiritually. The reconciliation ceremony brought something good out of something bad. And this is the island where Dan had suggested your congregation might be able to raise some funds for the rebuilding of their pastor's house as an anniversary project. For all these reasons, I was very much looking forward to returning to Ontario and being a guest at your 200th anniversary celebrations. But alas, COVID-19 happened. And I know we all have stories about how much COVID-19 has wrecked our plans. For example, I know Dan was in the running to be your next General Assembly moderator, and I hope that will come around again next year. A very good friend of mine here was in a similar position. He was all set to be inducted as our next moderator, and that would have happened last month. and he has had to put all his plans on hold. So we have all had to adapt, and the changes to our lives are still taking effect. As I said at the start, anniversaries encourage us to look back, but also to look forward, to learn from the past and to plan for the future. In a different way, the impact of COVID-19 is also causing us to do this. All over the world, plans have been thrown into chaos. So much has been messed around. What will we learn from this global pandemic? And how will our lives change as we pick up the pieces and move forward? Seeing as our mission in Vanuatu is one way in which we have a shared connection, I want to take this opportunity today to refer to Vanuatu to help us reflect on that question by citing two stories that have challenged my thinking on this. The first one is from a Vanuatu Daily Post article, the national newspaper, and its heading was, "Man Speaks Well of Coronavirus." When coronavirus began to cause havoc around the world, Vanuatu was very concerned to try and keep it out. So although they have not had any cases, they enforced some changes and encouraged social distancing. Although this had a very negative effect on their economy, one man made a name for himself by suggesting that there was something good about the impact of coronavirus on Vanuatu. This was reported in their national newspaper. His name was Harpelini, and the article goes like this. 26-year-old Harpelini of North Pentecost has become the first person to speak well of coronavirus. The young man has welcomed the arrival of the shocking coronavirus into the world, describing Vanuatu's measures of preparation as vital to improving our health standard. He argues that the large drop of patients at the Vila Central Hospital could be as a result of the compulsory washing of hands, as well as going home early after kava. He says kava represents custom, but that today it is taken in such large quantities that it defeats the original purpose of drinking kava. Once upon a time, kava was taken as a form of medication after a hard day's work, to allow the drinker to sleep in peace. But nowadays, young people tend to want to drink it into the night, and in the morning they sleep late and become lazy because it is abused, he argues. Now, as a result of the virus, drinkers go home early to their families and have a long sleep to rest their bodies. If the social distancing is lengthened, he predicts an even healthier workforce in the country, as people will cut down on kava drinking and return to healthy living by spending more quality time with families during meals and after meals. He said this is positive for the national economy as workers become healthy and they wake up early to get to work, to contribute towards the economic development of the country. He says everything in Vanuatu happens for a reason, and he believes that the coronavirus is a call for the population to return to doing what is right. He encourages everybody to follow the government's new policies and to recognise the benefits that come with the washing of hands and early to bed for kava drinkers. It's a fascinating perspective. In the past, kava, which is a ceremonial drink, kava drinking was more ceremonial and culture was respected and life had more balance. This man has felt that with the advent of coronavirus, the past is teaching his people a lesson, that they should be grateful for what their culture has taught them and not forget important lessons and values from the past. I don't know whether many people have listened to what he was saying, but I think there is a wisdom there that could be translated into various contexts around the world and applied in different settings. Is there a lesson we can learn about what has happened? Out of the global disruption wrought by COVID-19, can we help to bring something good out of something bad? The second story comes from a farmer on the island of Malakula. He was responding to a different crisis, This time it was a cyclone called Cyclone Harold, another uncontrollable event that wrecked many plans when it hit Vanuatu in April this year. This is what he had to say. A local farmer from Rory village in the eastern part of Malakula has been applauded because he did not wait for food rations from the government, but went ahead to start replanting right after Tropical Cyclone Harold. Mr. Silvano Malapa has demonstrated the resilience that our ancestors practiced before government support became a thing to rely on. Farmer Malapa said the cyclone caused a lot of damage to his gardens, but this challenge has energized him to replant and build back more strongly. He said the first thing that he did just after the cyclone was to visit all his gardens, clearing up his farm and starting to replant. As soon as the cyclone passed over, I did not wait. I commenced with the replanting, he said. We can't wait for the government to give us food. Mr. Malapa stated that each day after the cyclone, he continued to replant, expanding his farm to be bigger than before. As a farmer, my main role is to ensure that all the crops were replanted so that in the long run, my families will have sufficient food and keep on replanting to be more resilient, which will also contribute to rebuild our livelihood as well, he said. My advice to every farmer affected throughout various islands is that they should not be discouraged and entertain the waiting mentality, but should commence replanting short-term crops followed by other crops that they know from experience will contribute to their food security. My family members are so helpful, thus making the workload easier, leading to mass production on our farm. While the government is assisting with food distribution that could last for just a few weeks, in 3 to 6 months' time, my family and I will be expecting to harvest the crops that we have grown. Malapa said he has also supplied some local food to the community. We cannot depend on the government to feed us with imported food like rice, but we need to stand on our own 2 feet and start replanting our local crops, which is healthier than the food coming from overseas. God has blessed us with our land and our local food so that we use them well to ensure we have a healthy and wealthy life. I love his attitude. Don't wait for someone to come and help you. Go out and start planting. Take responsibility and use what you have in your hands to take your lives forward. Once again, something good can come from something bad. These stories say a lot about Vanuatu's cultural and economic shift, from rural to urban, removing people from their traditional lands and food source. That has also removed them from their traditional values and made it harder to be self-reliant. These 2 stories challenge me. First of all, in terms of my global mission role, how we should work alongside our partners going forward, encouraging self-reliance, and on a wider scale, how respect for traditional values might help the world avoid future global pandemics, because we sure don't want a repeat of this anytime soon. By now, you might be able to see the connection with our gospel story, the parable of the sower. One of the great gifts Jesus gave us was that he was so in touch with nature. His story of the farmer sowing seed is told so naturally. It's obviously a genuine observation from his daily life. In nations like Vanuatu, where people are so much more in touch with nature, help to give unique insights to well-known parables. It's a story that helps us today, all these years later. It's a story that provokes a question for St. John's Presbyterian Church in Bradford, Ontario. Reading the parable through the lens of a culture as remote and different as Vanuatu invites a question as you celebrate your anniversary. After 200 years of life and witness, what crops do you need to give special attention to now, to tend now, to preserve the best of what you have. But even more important, what crops do you need to sow now in order to grow a healthy future? Where do you need to till the soil and plant something new so that there will be new growth and a harvest to reap in the years to come? Where do your resources of time, energy, prayer and finance need to go to set you on the right course for the next stage of your journey as God's people in this place? 200 years of life and witness is something to be proud of and grateful for. It is also something that provides us with a rich heritage to learn from. How will lessons from the past and life in this current moment in time, with all its upheaval and unprecedented challenges, help you prepare for the future God is calling you to? I give thanks for the reconnection with your community in Bradford, coming as it did out of a tragic event in our country. I give thanks for your anniversary, even coming as it does in the midst of a global pandemic. It is a witness to our claim that our shared faith is built on the ultimate story of something good coming from something bad. No matter where we are in the world, Canada, New Zealand, Vanuatu, wherever, we live as Christian people whose faith is grounded in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which is a story of life refusing to give in, refusing to be defeated, of life overcoming even death itself. So may you stand firm in that faith with its ever-present promise of new life and new opportunities, being grateful for the past, rejoicing in the present, and looking forward with hope, believing that as you till the soil and sow new seed for the future, God will bless it and bring forth good fruit for many years to come. May God bless you all on this occasion of your 200th anniversary.